Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing?
I'm doing great today. How about yourself?
Good. So it is Leap Day.
Yes, it is. That was a major day back in school.
Yes. So what was major for you back in school, this Leap Day?
The school's just made like a big to-do. You know, people have a birthday, every 4 years. I thought that was like super cool. And I think we would always make like frog type crafts and stuff all day long.
Yes, yeah. And I think also, if I remember correctly, sometimes they use leap year as the day that like a woman asks a man out, kind of that to get us ready for women empowerment, which is, of course, next month.
That's right. Take the leap.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So, of course, to start to bridge, February is the month of love, and March is women empowerment, and the bridge between those is what?
Is the leap.
Is the leap. Yes. And so one way of leaping, especially in your body, is the big O.
Mm-hmm. That is an amazing leap.
Yes. And so I'm excited that today we're going to talk about females O and unlocking that sexual liberation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's definitely a discussion that needs to be had, especially because there are a very high percentage of women that don't experience. And maybe today we can have some light shed on how you can. So I think that's awesome.
Right. Because for many generations, including my own generation, it's not discussed about, people don't talk about it. And so I'm, thrilled to have a young lady who is going to inspire us. Yes. And to talk about it. So I'm really excited about that. But before we get to that, every month we do a nonprofit. And as we're ending this month of February, so you have one more day today in the month of February, and we've been highlighting Love and Kindness Project Foundation. It's one of those where helps give random acts of kindness.
Yes, and that's something we definitely need. That was a good one to have for the month of February. Hopefully we brought enough awareness that it just continues on, because everyone can use a random act of kindness, whether it be just saying bless you when somebody sneezes or paying for a coffee for the person behind you. Everything counts.
Definitely. And I'm glad you said that. We don't just have to stop today. We need to continue to do a variety of things. So yes, and kindness is free.
That's right.
Yes. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to have Tash Doherty. I have to make sure I pronounce her name right. Yes. And she is going to enlighten us with her expertise on unlocking the female O. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you wanting a vacation in paradise? Vacation to reignite the passion, the desire in your relationship? Vacation counseling is just for you. We are deeply committed to your success as a couple. Our couples counseling retreats are exclusive, effective, and intimate. At Vacation Counseling, you will benefit from a combination of couples counseling, intimacy counseling, and individual counseling while you and your partner enjoy a relaxing vacation in sunny Southwest Florida. If you are interested in vacation counseling, please visit us at vacationcounseling.com for more information on prices and packages.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Welcome, Tash. How are you doing?
I'm good. I hope everyone got to see that I'm eating ham while the advert was playing.
That's okay. Yes, and how do you pronounce your last name?
Doherty.
Doherty. Okay, totally was off. So, yes, Tash Doherty. Yes. So you're, of course, even when you just talk, people could know that you're from Britain.
Yes, I'm from London, and I've lived in the US, and now I live in Mexico City. And I write. I'm a writer and author, and have had a female health podcast as well for a couple of years. So I'm super excited to talk about this topic today.
Yes, definitely. You've written your first novel when you were a youngster.
Yes, I actually have a copy of it here, if anyone can see. It's called These Perfectly Careless Things. And it's a coming of age story, semi-autobiographical. There's a lot of sex in the book as well, including a masturbation self-love scene, which I think is important for women to read about because, you know, we all like masturbate, except that it's not often very featured in literature. So that was an exciting scene for me to be able to write. But yeah, and I've also written a lot about women's health and all kinds of things. So super excited to dive in.
Oh, definitely. Well, let's dive in. One of the things that we ask almost everyone is, what does intimacy mean to you?
Wow. That is a really great question. I think being seen, felt, and heard by my partner is a very important thing. Emotional intelligence is a very, very key part of intimacy. And yeah, I think being held in that space is a beautiful thing. And obviously there's the fun of it too. I think if you can't have fun with your partner, then that's a huge aspect of it as well. So you need that level of like comfortability and connection. So I think being able to, because like while, you know, you're sleeping with somebody or you're doing like, you know, sexy stuff with people, being able to look them in the eye and really feeling that like they are there and you're present together, I think that's really key to intimacy for me. And usually you want to be able to like smile because it's silly or it's messy or it's funny, whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah.
Okay, good. And one of the things you said in the beginning was to feel comfortable with your partner.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work you deal with is feeling comfortable in one's own body.
Yes, definitely. And I think, unfortunately, the onus is kind of on us, you know, despite the societal, barriers and stuff to exploring our own sexuality. I'm kind of a curious cat, so I've done a lot of exploration and like weird kinky shit with my previous partners. But I think that's a super important thing because if you don't know what you like, then you cannot instruct your partner on how to, you know, do the things that you like also. So I highly recommend things and other things that we'll get into, I'm sure, in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And so you started this journey as a young woman. Yes. Yeah. Was your parents very, how can I put it, flexible and allowed you to, or appreciate what you were trying to do?
I mean, so basically, I think the reason why I'm so interested in sex and women's pleasure as a topic is because my parents have 4 children, but I've never talked to them about sex or like even know that they had sex. Like I'm sure they did because they have 4 children. So suddenly these 4 children just magically appeared. But I think, yeah, I've always been curious about, again, like my own experiences and kind of the kind of person who will like open up a door if it's closed, you know, that kind of thing, which has obviously gotten me into trouble at times. But I think ultimately, I think sex is a huge important part of like romantic relationships, and I want to be able to have, you know, a strong and fulfilling romantic relationship with my various partners. And pleasure also I think feels good. Like, you know, I think so socially we've been so cut off from this for a really long time. And yeah, I think like exploring that on our own is a really important thing and owning it as well. So I'm very, very passionate about it. And also something that I've talked about in my writing a lot is the orgasm gap. So specifically for heterosexual couples between like male and female partners, you know, women are orgasming only like 65% of the time, if not less. Much less for me. Out of like 3 out of the 40 men that I've slept with have ever been able to give me an orgasm. Whereas like homosexual couples of either like male and female or female partners have much higher rates of orgasm. So it's clearly something about the male and female dynamic, and having that space for our pleasure in relationships, which is something that we need to work on and own our pleasure. So that's why I wrote the article that I wrote.
Yeah, and so I'm just sitting there thinking, and you do a good job about saying owning your orgasm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because in reality, that it starts here.
Totally. Yeah, and it can be awkward. Like, I think, one night stands and stuff. The woman that I quote a lot from is Dr. Laurie Mintz, who you should definitely have on the show if you haven't had her on already. She's a professor of psychology and human psychology and sexuality at the University of Florida, and she talks a lot about this in her work, about how we think we know from like research that females are less likely to orgasm on like a one night stand versus like a more consistent partnership. And so it's annoying, and socially that's where the problem is like we're not able to advocate for our own pleasure, or we don't feel like we can take up space even in a short-term encounter. So yeah, I just rectify that by making sure that whoever this person is that I'm sleeping with, like, we're going to use my vibrator, like, no matter what, even if it's a one-off thing, because I need to get something out of this as well. Like, we're not living in this world anymore, which is like, I mean, it's still the patriarchy, but we're trying to reverse that. So I think, yeah, making time and space for your pleasure, even if it's a one-night stand, is a very important thing to be able to do.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the statistics about the hetero versus the same-sex relationships when it comes to the, pleasure gap, honestly.
Yeah.
And I've been, when I talk to different groups, some same-sex couples, females, they're always like, yep. And it's more or less because they know how their bodies want to be pleased. But when you come to a hetero couple, it's a female is less likely to tell a man, hey, I need you to get into this position. No, turn here, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with men who say, well, I don't want to teach. When in actuality, that's how the other person learns. So I'm glad you brought that up, the statistics on that.
Yeah, and what's interesting as well, specifically around like lesbian couples, is that their orgasm, they on average orgasm more like 90% of the time, which is how often males orgasm in heterosexual encounters as well. But they very rarely use like penetrative sex of any kind, so like either dildos or like other kinds of penis style things. That's one of the Dr. Laurie Mintz. That's one of the main things that I learned from her is that. We in our social culture, all through porn, we are given this idea that like it has to be penetrative in order for the female to enjoy it, and actually only like 4% of females use penetrative sex as the way that their most likely route to orgasm. It's way more through like clitoral stimulation, or like any other kind of like stimulation that you enjoy, like some anal stimulation as well. Sometimes for people, there's some like evidence around that. So we're taught by porn or these other ideas that like it has to be like vaginal penetration, but that's not actually how women mostly orgasm. So that's a very important thing to remember. And there's another thing that I'll just talk about quickly, which is like the idea that when we talk about having sex with somebody, we also talk about like vaginal or like penis penetrating the vagina, but actually foreplay is where most females orgasm. And so we've got this language that we're using. We talk about, foreplay as something that's like a optional, an optional starter to the meal, whereas actually that is where most of the pleasure for the female ends up happening. And so the whole way that we've designed like heterosexual partner sex in our language is not emphasizing the part of the experience which is most pleasurable for the female. So that's very important to remember, that like foreplay is the main course for women, basically. It's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do believe that's what makes it sometimes difficult for women to choose the right vibrator or massager for themselves, is because it's automatically thought, oh, I need to get one that penetrates me.
Yeah.
Versus experiencing, and even if you get a penetrative one, just experiencing it on the external body, and finding those erogenous zones that really stimulate. It could be the back of your knee, it could be your nipples that really gets your juices going. So thank you for bringing that up as well.
Yeah, totally. The other really interesting thing that I learned from Dr. Mintz is that we use the term vagina to refer to the entire of the female anatomy, whereas that is only the inside tract part, right? The outside is the clitoris, the vulva, you know, all of the other parts of our like anatomy that we have. And so again, even in our language, we are preferencing male pleasure over our entire actual physical being, right? Whereas, as I said before, it's like the vagina is not the way through which most women achieve orgasm. So yeah, clitoral stimulation, as you're saying, is the most important thing. And Dr. Min says that like 78% of women's orgasm problems come from not enough or not like direct or not the right kind of clitoral stimulation. So that's the answer, y'all.
And I wish I had that model here, but also knowing what the actual clitoris is, how large it is, where it encompasses, where it begins, and versus just that little peak that we get to see. That's important as well.
Yeah, exactly. And in the article that I wrote, How to Achieve Orgasm Equality, I also featured some artists. I'm trying to remember one of their names. Let me see. Sophia Wallace of Clitorosity. Anyway, there are some artists that have that are making they make art which is like clitoris shaped. So you can get a better look of what it actually looks like inside and partly outside. But it's important to be able to even visualize what the clitoris looks like as well, so that we can, because if we don't know what it is, then how can we simulate it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we don't teach our girls how to see it. Some people have not even seen their own private parts. It's females.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yes. Yeah. And so it's important. So if people are out there listening, what tips do you have to help people in exploring their sexuality?
Yeah. So for sure, focus on the clitoris. I mean, this is just for females and specifically females who are having partner sex with males. I would also encourage people to transfer what they like into partnered sex. So that's one of the main issues is we might be comfortable masturbating on our own. We might have vibrators, whatever. But then when it comes to partnered male sex, we suddenly are doing a lot more fucking as opposed to stimulation of the clitoris or any other kinds of things. So I highly recommend that, and that usually takes place again beforehand. I usually try and come once or twice before I actually engage in having penetrative sex with a man. So that I think is really important because you already know what you might already, hopefully you already know what you like.
Right.
And that is something that is completely left out, as I said, of the starter, main course of sex, and then finishing of a typical heterosexual encounter. So yeah, that's where I would start.
Okay. And then the other thing I was thinking, because you've written books, I mean, that's also a great way to start, is to read, and
right.
Yeah. And for couples, I even suggest sometimes them reading some romantic type, sexy books.
Yeah. Actually, one thing that I've been wanting to do is do more of a sex writing workshop. And so basically having a prompt, doing a kind of a meditation, which we could kind of explore right now. I haven't tried it out yet, but the idea is that I've gained a lot of personal ownership, I would say, over my experiences. I've written articles I pegged my boyfriend, or why I don't swallow cum, the types of porn that I watch and why, and writing about my own sex life has really helped me to own those experiences and understand why I might like certain things or certain people, or even reflecting on partners' experiences that I've had and saying oh, that barista that I was dating for 8 months gave me the best oral sex of my life, and now I know for my future partners what I can replicate. And what I can tell them to do, because they can be you might not be as good as the barista, but these are the tips that really work for me. And so I think as a writer, I think that's really helped me to own a lot of my sexuality, and also casually dating women sometimes, exploring being bisexual. That's something as well that I've been able to do only through writing. So this is not writing that you have to share with anyone, but I would highly recommend, sit down with a pen. Maybe if you journal in the mornings, that kind of thing, take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to think of your best sexual experience. It could be, a summer romance that you had, or a specifically beautiful time with your partner, a long-term partner, maybe an anniversary dinner or something, followed by steamy sex, and and really just get into the zone and think about like, what was it that you liked about that experience? What were you wearing? What were you seeing, feeling, tasting, hearing? Because I think that's what is amazing about women's sexuality, is that it's not just the physical attraction, right? Like maybe your partner is like a complete nerd and you're like really into Chinese history, and he's like going off whipping out all these facts about Chinese history, and you're just like lapping it up, and you're like, oh, he's so sweet, he's so cool, you know?
Right.
So it can be like attraction, I think, and sexuality for women especially can have so many different aspects. It's a really experiential kind of a thing. So that's why I think writing about sexual experiences that you've had can really help you to like figure out what you like, and then also take ownership or say like, yes, I did experience those things, especially if you have had like challenging or traumatic experiences as well. So yeah, I also love writing, so that's why I probably recommend people to do more of that.
Yes, yeah. And so since you've put all of your information and your stuff about your sex life out there, has it impacted you in any kind of way, the positive or any negative impact?
I mean, I think right now, one of my friends told me that haters are just fans with frowns. So
What?
a hater is just a fan
Oh,
with a
yes,
frown.
yes, yes.
So I'm like, at one point, you know, I probably will get a lot more hate on the internet for what I've been doing. But right now, I still have a small and supportive enough
Oh, good.
reader base that I don't get that much hate. Touch wood. But I think it's going to be a good problem to have when I cross that bridge. I will give a shout out to my client boss. I do like a consulting work in data analytics as well to like pay my bills alongside writing. And I've just been really blown away by him. He's my like a really good friend of mine. And he reads and pays for my newsletter and also supports my work. So, and he's really like a huge supporter and wants me to like continue to write while I'm working for him. I also work for like a women's health app at the moment. So their big search queries on Google are like how to have anal sex. Like that's one of their most popular articles. So I have been able to find people who are aligned, you know, in terms of my vision and stuff. But then sometimes, you know, I'll send in a client proposal and they'll be like, oh no, sorry, we've decided to take a different direction. And I'm like, oh, maybe he read the article that about me pegging my boyfriend and was like, nope, don't want to work with that girl. But I think life's too short at the end of the day, you know, like as you guys know, you're doing really amazing work to like help people with a specific issue, which is very social and very pervasive. So I think if you're doing something that you believe in or you just don't really care, that helps a lot when you're working in this space. So I'm sure you have experience with that.
Right. And as you say, with the writing about sex and even your personal experience, realizing what you've gone through can help you in deciding how you move forward.
Yeah, totally. And I don't use a pen name or anything. I think that's a very important. Honesty is probably my most important value when it comes to my work. Yes. And I think that's why I wrote this article, you know, how to achieve orgasm equality, because, you know, we read like studies or we can be like, okay, the orgasm gap, like 65% of women are having an orgasm or whatever. But like, how does that relate to a real person's experience, like a real human person? And in some ways, I'm kind of just like, I don't care enough. So I'm just like, hey, I'll put myself out there. You know what I mean? Like this is, if you want, and you know, here's a scientific study which says that this is an issue for women, and here is a data point of one person to say, yes, I do like anal stimulation, or like, yes, I have pegged my boyfriend, or whatever. Because I think that's the human component that a lot of like scientific studies, especially around women's bodies, are really missing. And those are the anecdotes that we don't get, and so we don't know, you know, what other women are experiencing. So that's what I'm trying to do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being in the show. If people are wanting to reach out to you, where can they find you?
They can go to tashdoherty.com/book, or also look at my Substack, Miseducated. Yes, exactly. You've got the link up there. So that's where you can find my book. And then if you go on my website as well, there's my Substack is called Miseducated, MISSEDUCATED. Like we're miseducated. Like we're miss as in we're female, but we're also incorrectly educated about a lot of things. And yeah, so you can find my book there and then read more articles and hopefully have more orgasms. So
okay, awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. April.
All right, then. Yes. We'll take a break and we'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
Sex should not be the elephant in the room. The fourth ebook of the Improving Intimacy book series from Bringing Intimacy Back, It's All About Sex, helps you navigate every which way you can tend to your sex life. Pulling out all the stops, dive into the central read about sex toys, silky linens, and date nights. Improving Intimacy, It's All About Sex is available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and paperback. Search Dr. April Brown on Amazon to view all her books on improving intimacy for yourself, spouse, and more.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Wow, that was pretty powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Any time that we can talk about female pleasure and make it okay, I'm here for it because it's been quashed for too long, and it does matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's refreshing to have someone who's honest and just, speak their truth.
Absolutely. Yes. That's important. Well, we do have some more shows, great shows that's coming up in this beautiful month of Women's Month, March. So on March 7th, we are going to get a glimpse of a show, Dating with Style, with Maureen Gaynham. Not sure if you guys remember that. On March the 14th, we will be live with Todd Max Carey, and he's going to be talking about what kinksters can teach us. And then on the 21st, we're going to have a return show of self-care for extremely busy women with Suzanne Falter. And then both Dr. April and myself will be back live on March the 28th. And the question is, but is love blind? So we have some great shows coming up this month in Women's History Month.
Yes, so this has been a wonderful show, and please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you really like what she spoke about, definitely look her up, Tash. She was wonderful, and check her out and check out her books. Yes, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7th book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.